Welcome to this lecture on organizational structure. Organizations are comprised of people, and most organizations have hierarchical relationships between people, some at the top and some at the bottom. We're trying to figure out how to structure the hierarchical reporting relationships in organizations. In this chapter, we'll explore different types of organizational structure and how structure affects employee behavior and the organization. Let's get started. An organizational structure defines how job tasks are formally divided, grouped, and coordinated. Managers should address 7 key elements when they design their organization structure: work specialization, departmentalization, chain of command, span of control, centralization and decentralization, formalization, and boundary spanning. And this table presents each element as the answer to an important structural question. Work specialization describes the degree to which activities in the organization are divided into separate jobs. The essence of work specialization is to divide a job into a number of steps, each completed by a separate individual. Individuals specialize in doing part of an activity rather than the entirety. Early in the 20th century, by dividing jobs into small standardized tasks that could be performed over and over, Ford was able to produce a car every 10 seconds. Using employees with relatively limited skills, specialization is a means of making the most efficient use of employee skills and even successfully improving them through repetition. However, by the 1960s, managers recognized that the good news of specialization could be carried too far. As we can see from this figure, human diseconomies began to surface in the form of boredom, fatigue, stress, low productivity, poor quality, increased absenteeism, and high turnover, which more than offset the economic advantages. Managers began to increase the productivity and employee satisfaction by enlarging rather than narrowing the scope of job activities. Once jobs have been divided through work specialization, they must be grouped so common tasks can be coordinated. The basis by which jobs are grouped is called departmentalization. One of the most popular ways to group activities is by the functions performed. A manufacturing manager may organize a plant into engineering, accounting, manufacturing, human resource, and supply chain departments. The major advantages of this type of functional departmentalization is efficiencies gained from putting like specialists together. We can also departmentalize jobs by the type of product or service the organization produces. PG places each major product under executive who has complete global responsibility for it. The major advantage here is increased accountability for performance because all activities related to a specific product or service are under the direction of a single manager. When a firm is departmentalized on the basis of geography, for instance, the sales function may have Western, Southern, Midwestern, and Eastern regions each. In effect, a department organized around geography. This form is valuable when organizations' customers are scattered over a large geographic area and have similar needs within their locations. Well, the chain of command was once a basic cornerstone in the design of organizations. It has far less importance today. But managers should still consider its implications, particularly in industries that deal with potential life or death situations when people need to quickly rely on decision makers. The chain of command is an unbroken line of authority that extends from the top of the organization to the lowest echelon and clarifies who reports to whom. To facilitate coordination, each managerial position is given a place in the chain of command, and each manager is given a degree of authority in order to meet his or her responsibilities. Meanwhile, employees have only one superior to whom he or she is directly responsible. If the unity of command is broken, an employee may have to cope with conflicting demands or priorities from several superiors. However, time change, and so do the basic tenets of organizational design. A low-level employee today can access information in seconds that was available only to top managers a generation ago. And many employees are empowered to make decisions previously reserved for management. And the popularity of self-management and cross-functional teams, as well as structural designs that include multiple bosses. And you can see why authority and unity of command may appear to hold less relevance. The span of control describes the number of levels and managers an organization has. All things being equal, the wider and larger the span, the fewer levels, the more employees at each level, and the more efficient the organization. Assume two organizations each have about 4,100 operative level employees. One has a uniform span of 4 and the other a span of 8. As we can see from this table, the wider span of 8 will have 2 fewer levels and 800 fewer managers. If the average manager makes 15,000 a year, the wider span will save 14 million a year in management salaries. Obviously, wider spans are more efficient in terms of cost. However, at some point when supervisors no longer have time to provide subordinates with the necessary leadership and support, effectiveness declines and employee performance suffers. The trend in recent years has been toward wider span of control. They are consistent with firms' efforts to reduce cost, cut overhead, speed decision-making, increase flexibility, get closer to customers, and empower employees. However, to ensure performance doesn't suffer because of these wider spans, organizations have been investing heavily in employee training. Managers recognize they can handle a wider span best when employees know their jobs inside and out, or can turn to co-workers with questions. Centralization refers to the degree to which decision-making is concentrated at a single point in the organization. In centralized organizations, top managers make all the decisions, and lower-level managers merely carry out their directives. In organizations at another extreme, decentralized decision-making is pushed down to the managers closest to the action or to work groups. An organization characterized by centralization has different structure from one that is decentralized. A highly centralized organization will have a very tall structure, and people at the top tend to make those decisions, whereas a decentralized structure tends to be very flat. Employees can act more quickly to solve problems. More people provide input into decisions. Formalization refers to the degree to which jobs within the organization are standardized. If a job is highly formalized, the employee has a minimal amount of discretion over what to do and when and how to do it, resulting in consistent and uniform output. There are explicit job descriptions, lots of organizational rules, and clearly defined procedures covering work process. Formalization not only eliminates the possibility of employees engaging in alternative behaviors, it removes the need for them to consider alternatives. Conversely, where formalization is low, job behaviors are relatively unprogrammed, and employees have a great deal of freedom to exercise a discretion in their work. Within a single organization, boundary spanning occurs when individuals from relationships with people outside their formally assigned groups. For example, employees with experience in multiple functions, such as accounting and marketing, are more likely to engage in boundary spanning. Many organizations try to set the stage for this sort of positive relationships by creating job rotation programs, so new hires get a better sense of different areas of the organization. Boundary spanning activities occur not only within but also between organizations. Gathering information from external knowledge sources is especially helpful in highly innovative industries in which keep up with the competition is challenging. In this lecture, we identified 7 elements of an organization's structure and know that the organization needs to try and match its structure to the strategy. For example, if you are in the consumer electronic business, in order to quickly respond to the changing fickle desires of customers, you may want to consider a flat organization with a few layers in it. If your business is in a mature industry like coal mining, you may want a tall organization with multiple layers at checks and balances. Of course, there are many different factors affecting the effectiveness of an organizational structure. In the next lecture, we will introduce our common organizational structures. That's all for this lecture. See you next time.